Hello class. I am going to be doing my how-to video on foolproof Alfredo sauce. I'm going to go over several items that you'll need in order to prepare your Alfredo sauce. You'll need a whisk, a 12-inch or larger non-stick skillet. You'll need oil or butter or both, flour, diced onion, minced garlic, chicken broth, heavy cream, Italian cheese or whatever cheese is your preference, Italian seasoning, and of course salt and pepper or whatever other seasonings that you're using, okay? Now to get started, you want to heat your skillet on medium heat. You don't want to turn it up high because you don't want to run the risk of burning your butter or overheating your olive oil. Olive oil has a really high heating point, so it's really hard to overheat or burn olive oil. But you still don't want it too hot because once you start adding your ingredients in, they're just going to burn as soon as they hit the grease. You're not frying anything here. We're just really sauteing to start off. So you put your olive oil in the pan once it's heated up. Any kind of extra virgin olive oil that you have is great. That's what I would suggest. That's what I use. Like I said, it's a thing of preference. It's whatever you have on hand. If it's not extra virgin olive oil, use it anyway. I do olive oil and I do butter when I am making my sauces and things like that, especially when I'm doing like a roux. This is basically like a roux that I make as the base of my Alfredo sauce, and I just found that when I do it like that, the consistency and everything of it, it turns out better. It turns out a lot richer and creamier, and I just like it. I just like it like that. Like I said, that was a variation that I added once I had started cooking it several times. I just liked it like that, so that's how I started doing it. So I do a couple of tablespoons of olive oil, and then I'll put in about a tablespoon or so of butter. And this butter right here is awesome. It comes portioned already. It comes in these 8 half sticks, and it comes portioned in tablespoons. So you can just cut it off and throw it back in the refrigerator and go about your business. Continue cooking. So that's the best way to go. So after you have added your butter in or whatever, and you've let your skillet heat up and you're ready to start adding your other ingredients, your diced onion comes next. Go ahead and throw in your diced onion. Now what I do with the diced onion, I let it cook for a couple of minutes before I add in my garlic. I put the diced onion and the garlic in and let it saute for about 4 or 5 minutes. But like I said, I put my diced onion in first before I put the garlic in. I don't want to overcook the garlic because the garlic cooks in the sauce, and that's where I like it to cook. I like it to cook and disperse in the sauce. So you just want to add the garlic in maybe like the last minute or 30 minutes before you add in the rest of the ingredients, because you just want the garlic to kind of become fragrant, and you'll start smelling it. Like it smells delicious anyway when you're cooking it. So onion, and your garlic, finely minced, or you can buy minced garlic. If you don't want to mince garlic, you can buy minced garlic at the grocery stores. It's already chopped for you in the little jars. I do it sometimes too. So when I don't feel like chopping garlic, I keep both of them on hand. So after you've let that cook for about 4 to 5 minutes, the onions start looking a little translucent. It's time to add your flour. It depends on how much you're cooking. It's all about your portions. I'm cooking for 2 all the time, but if I'm cooking a big pot, I need to probably add it depends. Like I said, not a half a cup because that's way too much, like 1/4 of a cup. But just for what I do here for 2 people, I'm usually just adding like a couple of tablespoons of flour. Constantly stir while you're doing all of this. Constantly stir. You don't want anything to stick or have a burnt taste. You want everything, like I said, to just be smooth and taste good at the end for sure. So you add a couple of tablespoons of the flour, constantly stirring. You want to turn your heat down too when you add the flour. You don't want to burn the flour. you don't want to cook the flour too long either. You just want to cook the flour long enough to cook the flour taste out of it. You don't want your Alfredo sauce tasting like flour. You know, that flour pasty taste. It tastes weird. Anyway, so you don't want your Alfredo sauce to taste like that. So reduce your heat a little bit. And after you add your flour, you want to add your chicken broth. After you've cooked your flour enough, like I said, a couple minutes, add your chicken broth. This is my favorite chicken broth. It just tastes really good and rich, and you can get it in reduced sodium and fat-free, and it comes in several variations. So this is the best broth to me. It has a really good flavor. It's just so good. So I add, usually I'm just kind of throwing numbers out here because I just eyeball it. I don't measure. About a cup, maybe a cup or so. It just depends, like I said. Now, if you don't have chicken broth, you can use white wine. You could use water. I wouldn't suggest it. White wine or chicken broth, though, for sure. You want it to come out good, white wine or chicken broth. If I don't have white wine, I'm definitely using chicken broth. It gives it the right flavor, and it just adds another depth of flavor to it. Now, once you put in the chicken broth, or like I said, the white wine, like I said, constantly make sure you're stirring. You want to slowly pour in your heavy cream. It doesn't have to be Land O'Lakes. I just like Land O'Lakes personally. Like I said, you use whatever you have. But heavy whipping cream, rich and creamy. You pour that in slowly. Now at this point, you need to make sure that you turn your heat down to low, because if you put it in and your heat is too high, this has milk in it. It'll start to curdle. You don't want that. So you add this in slowly, stirring constantly, as I was saying before. And at this point, I'd suggest going ahead and adding your seasonings. Sometimes I go ahead and add my seasonings in, like my Italian seasoning, because it has like thyme and rosemary, and I like my rosemary to cook down a little bit because it's a little coarse, like they're little stems. So you want them to get tender. You don't want those, sticks. You don't want to add it in at the last minute because you'll have those sticks of rosemary in your Alfredo sauce. So if you add it in a little earlier and let it cook down with the rest of the ingredients, then it'll be perfect. You'll taste it, the aromatics and everything, and it'll be perfect. It'll just be great. So this is the Italian seasoning that I would go ahead and add in right now or previous to this step for sure. Black pepper, red pepper flakes, onion powder, rosemary, garlic powder, oregano, basil, and parsley. If you don't already have Italian seasoning, you can make it yourself if you have most of these ingredients. If you don't have all these ingredients, make it work. So last but not least, well, as far as like the important ingredients to actually make your sauce come together, you will need Italian cheese. It doesn't have to be this Italian cheese. I like the 5 cheese Italian. It has all the cheeses in it that I like: Romano, mozzarella, provolone, Asiago, and Parmesan. Everything in this one bag. And plus it's cheaper to go ahead and just buy this bag versus buying all separate cheeses and grading them yourself, which is really good to grade the cheese yourself. If you want to try it that way, I would suggest doing it at least once. It's just a little more expensive for sure. But if you're a person making Alfredo sauces often, you don't want to spend that money all the time. So yeah, just get this prepackaged Italian 5 cheese blend, and it worked great. It works just fine. So you stir that in and constantly stirring. Let that simmer and the cheese melt. I'd say let that happen for about maybe 10 minutes. During this time, you adjust your seasonings, taste it, see if you like it. If you need to add anything, or, well, at this point you can't take anything away. You either add it or leave it alone. So if you feel like it needs some more salt or, whatever other seasonings, I like adding Cajun seasoning and cayenne pepper to mine because I like making like a Cajun Alfredo sauce. So The Italian cheese, in my opinion, adds enough salt, so usually I don't need to add any more salt. But like I said, Cajun seasoning, I like adding Cajun seasoning and the cayenne pepper to my Alfredo sauce, and that's, like I said, that's my preference. And then of course at the end, I mean, salt and pepper. I mean, if you don't have anything else, salt and pepper, you can never go wrong with it. I like using the pink Himalayan sea salt, the pink Himalayan salt. It's really good. It has all kind of health benefits compared to regular salt and your ground pepper, and that's pretty much it. You can add parsley, fresh parsley. If you don't have fresh parsley, use dry parsley and just sprinkle it over the top when you're done, and that's basically it. Foolproof Alfredo sauce. If y'all have any questions, you can definitely comment and let me know. And y'all have a wonderful night.